It was the laughter that caught my attention first. Not the kind you hear at family dinners or late-night comedy shows. No, this was a private, low, intimate kind of laugh, one I hadn't heard from her in months. I was sitting in the den, flipping through emails on my laptop. The sound came from the kitchen, where my wife, Emma, was supposedly baking cookies for our son's school fundraiser. I wasn't planning on intruding, but curiosity got the better of me. I stood and walked to the doorway. She was leaning against the counter, her phone in hand, a playful smile dancing across her lips. Her blonde hair was tucked messily behind her ears, and she twirled a spatula in her other hand like a teenager. That laugh came again, soft and teasing, as she said, "You're terrible, Jason." "I can't believe you said that." "Jason." I froze. I didn't know a Jason. Not in her circle, not in ours. "Who's Jason?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. My voice startled her, and she nearly dropped the phone. She spun around, her blue eyes wide, but that smile faded in an instant. "Oh, hey, babe," she said, slipping the phone into her pocket. "He's just someone from work. We were talking about the presentation I did last week." "Must have been a funny presentation," I said, crossing my arms. Her smile returned, but it was different now, forced. "Yeah, it was a mess, but he helped me figure it out." I wanted to believe her. I really did. After 12 years together, you'd think trust would be the default setting. But something about the way her hand lingered on the pocket where her phone was, or how she avoided my gaze, sent a ripple of doubt through me. That night, after she went to bed, I stayed up, replaying the moment in my head. I wasn't the jealous type, but something didn't sit right. So, I did what I never thought I'd do, I went through her phone. It wasn't hard. Her passcode hadn't changed in years. I scrolled through her messages until I found Jason. "Can't stop thinking about last night. I wish I could kiss you right now. I'll make something up so I can come see you tomorrow." The blood drained from my face. My hands shook as I scrolled further. Pictures. Selfies of him, shirtless in a gym. Her, in a dress I didn't recognize, captioned, "Do you like it?" His reply, "I like what's under it better." My heart hammered in my chest, each beat louder than the last. I slammed the phone shut and sat there in the dark, stunned. My wife, my Emma, was cheating on me. I could hear her soft breathing from the bedroom, steady and untroubled, as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in my life. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she lied about staying late at work or grabbing drinks with the girls? The next morning, I played it cool. I had to. I needed more than texts and flirty messages. I needed to know the full scope of her betrayal. "Hey, babe," I said over breakfast, forcing a smile. "You still going out with Ashley tonight?" Emma looked up from her coffee, startled. "Yeah, why?" "Just curious," I said, taking a sip of my own coffee. "I thought maybe we could watch that show you like when you get back." Her smile was warm, almost convincing. "Sounds great." I watched her leave that evening, her heels clicking against the tile floor, a small clutch in hand. When the door shut behind her, I grabbed my keys and followed her. I kept my distance as she drove, my pulse racing with every turn she took. Finally, she pulled into the parking lot of a downtown hotel. I parked 2 blocks away and walked back, heart pounding. I saw her step into the elevator, her face lighting up as she greeted a tall, muscular man in a tailored suit. Jason. They didn't even try to hide it. He kissed her right there in the elevator before the doors slid shut. The world tilted, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind reeled with the possibilities: anger, heartbreak, revenge. My perfect life was crumbling, and I had no idea how to stop it. But one thing was clear: Emma had no idea what was coming next. I stood frozen outside the hotel, the icy night air biting at my face as Jason's smug grin and Emma's radiant smile played on repeat in my mind. They didn't even try to be discreet. My wife of 12 years, my partner, my confidant, had kissed another man as casually as she might have kissed me before leaving for work. Every part of me wanted to storm into that hotel, yank her out of whatever fantasy she'd spun for herself, and demand answers. But as the adrenaline pumped through my veins, another voice whispered, "Be smart, not reckless. Get the truth, all of it." I walked back to my car, my head spinning. I didn't go home, though. I parked in a nearby lot and opened my phone. If I was going to confront her, I needed more than accusations. I needed evidence, irrefutable proof that couldn't be brushed off as misunderstandings or paranoia. A quick online search led me to a private investigator's website. I hesitated for a moment before dialing the number. "Martin Investigations," a gruff voice answered. "My wife is cheating," I said, cutting straight to the point. "I need proof." The investigator, a man named Sam, didn't ask many questions. By the next day, we had a plan in motion. Sam would follow her, document her movements, and get the evidence I needed. In the meantime, I had to act like nothing was wrong. That was the hardest part. The next morning, Emma was her usual self, chirpy, affectionate, and completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. She kissed me on the cheek as I poured coffee. "Don't forget, dinner with the Petersons tonight," she said, her voice light. "We promised them weeks ago." I forced a smile. Looking forward to it. I wasn't. At work, I couldn't focus. My mind replayed the scene at the hotel over and over. I kept thinking about the texts I'd seen, the way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Every little detail that once seemed harmless now felt like a glaring sign I'd missed. That evening, as we sat across from the Petersons, Emma was the picture of grace and charm. She laughed at all the right jokes, touched my arm affectionately, and even complimented me in front of them. But now I knew it was all a facade. Her laugh grated on my nerves, her touch felt like a lie, and every word out of her mouth was laced with betrayal. When we got home, she leaned in to kiss me goodnight. I let her, the taste bitter and hollow. The next day, Sam called me. "She's meeting him again," he said. "Same hotel." This time, I was ready. I drove to the hotel and parked nearby, just as Sam instructed. He was already there, camera in hand, documenting everything. Through his lens, I saw Emma step out of her car, dressed in a sleek black dress I hadn't seen before. She looked stunning, radiant even, but not for me. Jason was waiting for her outside. He pulled her into a tight embrace, his hands lingering on her waist. Emma leaned into him, her face glowing with a happiness that made my stomach churn. They walked inside together, hand in hand, like a couple without a care in the world. Sam caught it all. "She's not even hiding it," he muttered, shaking his head. "You want me to keep following?" I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. When I got home that night, Emma was already there, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine in hand. She looked up at me and smiled. "Hey, you're late," she said. "Long day?" "Yeah," I said, loosening my tie. "Just a lot going on." She stood and walked over to me, her arms wrapping around my neck. Her perfume, once comforting, now made me nauseous. "You work so hard," she said, kissing my cheek. "Why don't you sit down? I'll grab you a drink." I watched her walk into the kitchen, my heart a chaotic mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she pretend everything was fine while sneaking off to be with someone else? That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, planning my next move. I had the proof. Now it was time for confrontation. But not yet. I wanted to catch her in the act, to see her face when she realized she couldn't lie her way out of it. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, the destruction she'd caused. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of clarity. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about respect, about dignity. Emma had treated me like a fool, but the game was about to change. Tomorrow, I would set the trap. Morning came, and Emma moved around the house with her usual flair, humming a tune as she prepared breakfast. I watched her from the kitchen table, the betrayal simmering just beneath the surface. Every move she made, every smile she threw my way, felt like a deliberate mockery. "How about we do something fun this weekend?" she asked, sliding a plate of eggs and toast in front of me. "Maybe a little getaway? Just the two of us?" Her audacity was staggering. How could she stand there, suggesting a romantic trip, when only last night she'd been with Jason? "That sounds great," I said, forcing a smile. "Let's talk about it tonight." She leaned down and kissed my cheek, her lips soft and warm. "You're the best." As soon as she left for work, I called Sam. She mentioned a weekend trip, I told him. "I need to know if she's planning it with him." "She's got another meeting today," he said. "Same hotel, same guy." It was time. "Follow her again," I instructed. "Let me know when they're inside." By noon, I was in my car, parked a block away from the hotel. My heart raced as Sam texted, "They're in room 512. I walked into the hotel with a calmness I didn't feel. My fists clenched and unclenched at my sides as I approached the front desk. "I'm here to surprise my wife," I told the receptionist, flashing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Could you let me up to room 512? I want to catch her off guard." The receptionist hesitated, her gaze flickering to my clenched jaw, but eventually nodded. "Of course, sir." She handed me a keycard, and I rode the elevator up, my pulse hammering in my ears. When I reached the door, I stood there for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Inside, I could hear faint laughter, Emma's unmistakable giggle and Jason's deep chuckle. My stomach turned. With one swift motion, I swiped the keycard and pushed the door open. The scene before me was surreal. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, her dress hiked up to mid-thigh. Jason stood in front of her, his hands resting on her shoulders as they shared a moment of quiet laughter. Their heads whipped toward me, shock and panic written across their faces. "Hey, honey," I said, my voice icy. "Am I interrupting?" Emma shot to her feet, her face flushing a deep red. "What are you doing here?" she stammered. "I could ask you the same thing," I said, stepping further into the room. My gaze shifted to Jason, who looked like a deer caught in headlights. "And who the hell is this?" Jason opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Emma stepped in front of him, her hands raised as if to shield him from my fury. "Calm down," she said, her tone more commanding than apologetic. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Really? Because it looks like my wife is cheating on me in a hotel room with another man." Emma's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. "He's just a friend," she blurted out. "We were talking." Jason, to his credit, finally found his voice. "Look, man, I didn't know she was married." I turned my glare on him. "And that makes it okay?" Emma grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Let's talk about this at home," she said, her voice low and pleading. "Talk?" I snapped, yanking my arm away. "Now you want to talk? After sneaking around behind my back for God knows how long?" Her demeanor shifted in an instant. The pleading look vanished, replaced by a defiant sneer. "Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. For a moment, I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Jason took a step back, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating tension. "You want to blame me for this?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You made a choice, Emma. Don't you dare try to pin this on me." Emma crossed her arms over her chest, her chin jutting out defiantly. "You're always so serious, so focused on work. Jason, he makes me feel alive." "Alive?" I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "Is that what this is about? Your little midlife crisis?" Her eyes flashed with anger. "Don't you dare belittle me. You think you're so perfect, so high and mighty. Maybe if you paid attention to me, we wouldn't be here." I stared at her, disbelief and disgust warring within me. "You are unbelievable," I said. "You destroy our marriage, and now you're standing here, trying to justify it?" Jason took another step back, his hands raised in surrender. "Look, man, I'm out of here. I didn't sign up for this drama. Don't let the door hit you on the way out," I said coldly. He left without another word, leaving me alone with Emma. She didn't look remorseful. If anything, she looked annoyed, as though I was inconveniencing her. "I'll pack my things tonight," I said finally, my voice quiet but firm. "We're done." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You're leaving?" "No," I said, meeting her gaze with steely resolve. "You are." Emma's stunned silence filled the room like a deafening roar. She blinked, her mouth opening and closing as if trying to find the right words to manipulate me again. But this time, I wasn't buying it. "You can't just throw me out," she finally said, her voice laced with indignation. "This is my home too." "It was your home," I said, keeping my tone steady. "You forfeited that right when you decided to betray me. Start packing, Emma. I'm done." Her face twisted into a mask of fury. "You're overreacting. One mistake, and you're ready to end everything we've built." "One mistake?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Don't insult me. This wasn't a one-time slip-up, was it? How many times, Emma? How long have you been meeting him behind my back?" Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually confess. But instead, she rolled her eyes. "Does it even matter? You're acting like some saint, but you've never been perfect, Liam." That struck a nerve. "I didn't cheat on you, Emma. I didn't lie to your face and sneak around. So don't stand there and try to drag me down to your level." Her lips curled into a bitter smirk. "You think you're so righteous, don't you? Fine. You want the truth?" Jason wasn't the first. The air left my lungs as if I'd been punched. My fists clenched at my sides, and I took a step back, struggling to process her words. "How many?" I asked through gritted teeth. She shrugged, as if the number was irrelevant. "Does it matter? You clearly didn't notice, so maybe that's on you." The sheer cruelty of her words sent a fresh wave of anger coursing through me. I wanted to shout, to throw something, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she was causing. But I knew better. Giving her that satisfaction would only fuel her twisted sense of justification. Instead, I took a deep breath and stepped closer, towering over her. "You've made your bed, Emma. Now you can lie in it, alone. I'm not wasting another second on someone who doesn't respect me or our marriage." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're such a drama queen. Fine, I'll go. But don't think you're walking away from this unscathed. I'll make sure everyone knows what a controlling, boring husband you are." "Do whatever you want," I shot back. "Your lies won't change the truth. And the truth is, you're nothing more than a selfish, entitled cheat." Without another word, I turned and walked out of the hotel room, slamming the door behind me. My hands trembled as I made my way to the car, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I sat behind the wheel, staring blankly at the dashboard. My mind raced, replaying every moment of our marriage, every red flag I'd ignored, every lie I'd believed. How had I been so blind? The drive home was a blur. When I arrived, I immediately started gathering her things, stuffing clothes and personal items into suitcases with a cold efficiency. This wasn't just about kicking her out, it was about reclaiming my space, my life, my dignity. As I packed, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sam. "How'd it go? Need me to do anything?" I typed back, "She's out. But I'm going to need a lawyer." Sam responded immediately, "Got a good one. I'll send you the details." Hours passed, and by the time Emma returned, her suitcases were waiting by the front door. She walked in, her expression a mix of irritation and disbelief. "You really packed my stuff?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "I told you to leave," I said, standing my ground. "The locks are being changed tomorrow. You have until then to figure out where you're going." "You're unbelievable," she spat. "You think you're punishing me, but you're just proving how pathetic you are." I didn't respond. Her words no longer had the power to hurt me. As she dragged her suitcases out the door, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight of her deceit, her manipulation, was finally lifting. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Once she was gone, I sat on the couch, staring at the empty space where she used to sit. The silence was deafening, but it was also liberating. I wasn't naive, I knew the hard part was just beginning. The legal battle, the questions from friends and family, the process of rebuilding my life from the ashes of our marriage. But for now, I allowed myself a moment of peace. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something new. Something better. The days following Emma's departure were a whirlwind of chaos and clarity. The house felt emptier without her presence, yet for the first time in years, it was free of her deceitful energy. I poured myself into practical matters, changing the locks, consulting with the lawyer Sam recommended, and gathering all the evidence I could find. If Emma wanted a fight, she was going to get one. Sam came over the night after she left, a six-pack of beer in hand and a smirk on his face. "How does it feel to have the witch out of the house?" he asked, cracking open a bottle and handing it to me. I took a long sip, letting the cold bitterness steady my nerves. "Liberating. But I can't shake this feeling that she's not done with me yet." Sam nodded. "She'll try something, Liam. Women like Emma don't go quietly. But you've got this. Just stay one step ahead." We spent the evening going through texts, emails, and even our shared financial accounts. It didn't take long to uncover a pattern of lies. There were unexplained charges for fancy dinners, hotel stays, and gifts I never received. "She wasn't even subtle," Sam muttered, scrolling through the bank statements. "What kind of idiot leaves this much of a trail?" "An overconfident one," I replied. By the time Sam left, I had enough evidence to paint a damning picture of Emma's infidelity. My lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Karen, assured me this would strengthen my case for divorce. "She'll play dirty," Karen warned during our first meeting. "But if you stay calm and let me handle the legal side, we'll make sure she doesn't walk away with more than she deserves." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope for the first time. But Emma, true to form, wasn't going to make things easy. 2 days later, she showed up unannounced. I was in the middle of reorganizing the living room, trying to erase every trace of her, when I heard the knock. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, wearing her usual look of smug entitlement. "What do you want, Emma?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "To talk," she said, brushing past me and stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door, turning to face her. "You've got 5 minutes. Make it count." She glanced around, noticing the changes I'd made. "Wow, you didn't waste any time, did you? Throwing out everything that reminded you of me? Can you blame me?" I shot back. Why are you here? She sighed dramatically, as if this whole situation was an inconvenience for her. Look, Liam, I don't want things to get ugly. We can work this out like adults. I couldn't help but laugh. You mean after you cheated on me multiple times, lied to my face, and treated our marriage like a joke? Sure, let's be adults. What do you really want, Emma? Her expression hardened. Half of everything. I stared at her, disbelief mingling with anger. You can't be serious. I'm entitled to it, she said, her voice dripping with venom. We were married, Liam. I'm not walking away empty-handed. Over my dead body, I snapped. You're not getting a dime more than what the law says you're owed. And trust me, I've got enough evidence to make sure you don't get much. Her smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. You think you can intimidate me? I'll ruin you, Liam. I'll make sure everyone knows what a pathetic, controlling husband you are. Do your worst, I said, stepping closer. But remember this, Emma, you're the one who destroyed this marriage. Not me. The truth has a way of coming out, no matter how many lies you tell. She glared at me, her confidence wavering. You'll regret this. Not as much as I regret marrying you, I shot back, opening the door. Now get out. For a moment, she hesitated, as if debating whether to continue the fight. But then she stormed past me, her heels clicking angrily against the floor. As the door slammed behind her, I let out a long breath. The confrontation had been exhausting, but it also solidified my resolve. I wasn't going to let Emma manipulate me anymore. That night, I sat down with a notebook and started writing everything I wanted to say in court. Every lie she'd told, every betrayal I'd uncovered, it all poured out onto the pages. It wasn't just about winning the legal battle. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my sense of self. For too long, I'd let Emma control the narrative. But now, it was my turn to take the reins. The morning of the preliminary court hearing arrived with a chill in the air, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you hyper-aware of your surroundings. I adjusted my tie in the mirror, catching a glimpse of the man I used to be, and the man I was becoming. Stronger, angrier, and ready to fight. Sam picked me up outside my house. He was my rock through this ordeal, always ready with a sarcastic comment or a reality check when I needed it most. Ready to stare down Medusa, he quipped, glancing over at me as we drove toward the courthouse. Medusa had more charm, I muttered, staring out the window. As we arrived, Emma was already there, standing in front of the courthouse with her lawyer. She looked polished and smug in a sleek black dress, her posture screaming confidence. But I could see through the facade now, it was nothing more than a mask to cover her venom. She caught my eye and smirked, but I ignored her. My focus was on Karen, who greeted me with a firm handshake. Remember, Karen said as we walked inside, stick to the facts. Don't let her bait you. The hearing was a surreal experience. Emma's lawyer painted her as a victim, someone who had been emotionally neglected in the marriage. It was almost laughable, except it wasn't. She's spinning a story, Karen whispered to me as Emma's lawyer droned on. Don't worry. We've got this. When it was Karen's turn, she dismantled their narrative piece by piece. The evidence we'd gathered, the texts, the financial records, the hotel receipts, spoke louder than any of Emma's lies. By the time the hearing was over, Emma's confidence had noticeably dimmed. She avoided my gaze as we filed out of the courtroom. You did well, Karen said, patting me on the back. This was just the first step, but it's a good one. I nodded, though the weight of it all still sat heavy on my shoulders. That evening, I decided to give myself a break. Sam suggested a night out, something to distract me from the chaos. We went to a local bar, where the music was loud enough to drown out my thoughts. Over drinks, Sam asked, "So, what's the plan now? Once the divorce is final, I mean." "I don't know," I admitted. "It's hard to think beyond all this. But I know one thing, I'm never letting anyone like Emma into my life again." Sam raised his glass. "To new beginnings, then." We clinked glasses, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. But Emma wasn't done yet. The next morning, I woke to a barrage of messages from mutual friends. Emma had posted a long, dramatic rant on social media, accusing me of everything from emotional abuse to infidelity. "She's losing it," Sam said when I showed him the post. "She knows she's losing, so she's trying to control the narrative." I wanted to respond, to set the record straight, but Karen advised against it. "Don't stoop to her level," she said firmly. "Let her dig her own grave. The more unhinged she looks, the better it is for you in court." So, I stayed silent, even as the comments and messages poured in. Some people believed her lies, others saw through them. It was frustrating, but I reminded myself that the truth would come out eventually. A week later, I received a call from one of Emma's former friends, a woman named Michelle. "I'm not on her side," Michelle said bluntly. "I just thought you should know, Emma's been bragging about how she's going to take you for everything. She even mentioned something about hiding assets." My blood boiled. Emma wasn't just content to smear my name, she was actively trying to undermine me. "Thanks for telling me," I said, my voice tight. "This helps." I relayed the information to Karen, who promised to investigate. The more I learned about Emma's schemes, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about survival, protecting myself from her toxicity and ensuring she didn't destroy me in the process. The final straw came when I discovered she had tried to access our joint account, despite the court order freezing it. It was a blatant violation, and I wasted no time reporting it. When I confronted her about it over the phone, she didn't even deny it. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" she sneered. "But I always get what I want, Liam. Always." "Not this time," I said coldly. "You've underestimated me, Emma. And that's your biggest mistake." As I hung up, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Emma could try every dirty trick in the book, but I wasn't the man I was when this all started. I was stronger now, smarter, and ready for whatever she threw my way. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of court filings, tense meetings, and a constant undercurrent of Emma's escalating theatrics. Her antics grew bolder and more desperate. She wasn't just fighting to win, she was fighting to obliterate me, like some twisted vendetta she couldn't let go. Karen, ever the calm and collected professional, kept me grounded through it all. "She's unraveling," Karen said during one of our strategy sessions. "People like Emma don't handle losing well. Stay focused, Liam. We're almost there." I tried to focus, but Emma made it nearly impossible. One afternoon, I returned home to find my front lawn vandalized. Spray-painted words like liar and cheater were scrawled across the grass and driveway. My stomach turned as I realized it was her. "Are you kidding me?" I shouted into the void, my anger bubbling over. I called the police, who documented the vandalism. I didn't mention Emma's name, it wasn't worth giving her the satisfaction, but I knew it was her. She was lashing out, desperate to get under my skin. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You think you can humiliate me? Watch your back. Emma." I forwarded the message to Karen, who advised me to keep my distance and document everything. But then came the breaking point. I was sitting at home, going over some paperwork, when I got a call from my bank. "Mr. Harper," the representative said, "we noticed some unusual activity on your account." "What kind of activity?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "It appears someone attempted to transfer a significant amount of money from your personal savings account. The transaction was flagged and halted." I felt the blood drain from my face. Who authorized it? I demanded. There was a pause. It seems the request came from your wife. Ex-wife, I thought bitterly, but I kept my composure long enough to thank the representative and hang up. Then I exploded. Emma had crossed every line. The nerve of her, trying to siphon money she had no right to. I was done playing defense. The next morning, I met Karen at her office and laid out everything, the vandalism, the threats, the attempted theft. It's time to hit back, I said. Karen nodded, her expression steely. We'll file a motion to address this in court. She's making our case for us. The next hearing was a turning point. Karen presented the evidence of Emma's recent actions, painting a damning picture of her behavior. Even her own lawyer seemed exasperated, as though he were struggling to defend her antics. Emma, however, showed no remorse. She sat there with her arms crossed, glaring at me as if I were the villain in her twisted narrative. But the judge saw through her. This behavior is unacceptable, he said firmly, addressing Emma. You've shown a blatant disregard for the legal process and for basic decency. Consider this your final warning. I watched as Emma's composure cracked, her face flushing with anger and embarrassment. For the first time, I felt like I was winning, not just in court, but in reclaiming my life. That evening, I allowed myself a moment of quiet reflection. I thought about everything I'd been through, all the lies and betrayal, and how far I'd come since that night when I first discovered her affair. I wasn't the same man anymore. Emma had tried to destroy me, but all she'd done was forge a stronger version of me. One who wouldn't be manipulated, who wouldn't tolerate disrespect, and who knew his worth. As I sat there, sipping a glass of whiskey, I made a promise to myself, I would see this through to the end, and I would come out on top. The final confrontation was coming, and I was ready for it. The day of the final court hearing arrived, and the air in the courtroom felt heavy with anticipation. Emma sat across from me, her fiery demeanor subdued but still simmering under the surface. Her lawyer shuffled through papers with a weariness that hinted at how exhausting this battle had been for everyone involved. Karen leaned in and whispered, "This is it, Liam. Stay composed. No matter what happens, keep your head high." I nodded, but my heart was pounding. This wasn't just about legalities anymore, it was about reclaiming my dignity and putting an end to Emma's chaos once and for all. The hearing began with Karen presenting our final argument. She laid out everything, Emma's affair, her erratic behavior, the vandalism, the threats, and the attempted theft. Piece by piece, Karen dismantled the facade Emma had tried so hard to maintain, exposing her true nature to the court. When it was Emma's turn to speak, she didn't hold back. "Liam is a liar," she spat, her voice trembling with indignation. "He's trying to paint me as some monster to cover up his own failures as a husband. I wouldn't have looked elsewhere if he hadn't been so emotionally absent." I clenched my fists under the table, fighting the urge to respond. Karen had warned me not to react, and I trusted her judgment. The judge, however, wasn't buying Emma's theatrics. He raised a hand to silence her, his expression one of growing impatience. "Mrs. Harper," he said sternly, "this court is not here to entertain personal grievances or petty accusations. We are here to determine what is fair and just under the law. Your behavior, both in and out of this courtroom, has been consistently troubling." Emma's face turned red, but she fell silent, glaring at me with unspoken venom. When the judge delivered his verdict, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. The division of assets was fair, heavily favoring me due to Emma's misconduct. The attempted theft of my savings was officially noted as a criminal offense, and she was ordered to cover my legal fees. As we left the courtroom, Emma stormed past me without a word, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. This was the woman I had once loved, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. But that woman no longer existed, if she ever had. Karen placed a hand on my shoulder. "It's over, Liam. You did it." I nodded, a small smile breaking through the exhaustion. "Thanks to you." The days that followed were quiet, almost eerily so. Without Emma's constant drama, my life felt foreign in its calmness. But it was a welcome change, a chance to finally breathe and focus on myself. One evening, I sat in the living room, staring out at the sunset. My thoughts drifted to the lessons I'd learned from this ordeal. Betrayal had a way of breaking you, but it also had a way of revealing your true strength. I had discovered a resilience I never knew I possessed, and I had grown in ways I couldn't have imagined. If I had any advice for others in similar situations, it would be this: trust your instincts, stand up for yourself, and never let someone's betrayal define your worth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I raised my glass in a silent toast to new beginnings. Emma may have tried to tear me down, but in the end, I was the one who walked away stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever life had in store.